It's a request to amend the city's business enterprise ordinance, and Doug Herman from our city attorney's office is here to assist with this discussion.
Is the possible applicant on the line or here?
Yeah, she's right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you.
She's been waiting patiently. So,
Yeah.
first of all, I apologize for starting late. I'm sorry about that. So, yes, she is here.
Oh, my mistake. Sorry.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe we should start with, the location you have in mind, maybe a little background, and then what you're proposing to do.
Okay, well, first of all, I have a doll, and we own property I own property at 501 West Fifth Street. It's the corner of Fifth and Locust. Big black house, sits on the corner. My husband and I were living there with our 2 kids. We bought an acreage north of Tipton just in December and moved out there. So I've gone to school for my esthetician license and a nail tech license. And since we own that property, we transferred it into my name only, so the business owns it. And I'd like to use that property to do my in-home business of skin care, nail care. Tanning would be the other thing.
Excuse me.
My intention is to keep the home looking like a home so that when you drive by, you don't really know what's going on there. My neighbors haven't even realized I moved. So it's kind of a low key because I've been doing friends and family just to practice and keep up. But that's my intention, is just, I'd be the only one working there. I'm the only one owning it. It would just, I have off-street parking. If you look on the, Locust side is my driveway. And I would probably put like a small sign there, just says Val's, so that when people walk in, they would know this is where they need to come in the door. But otherwise, with GPS nowadays, people are gonna know the corner of Fifth and Locust. It's pretty easy. 2 stop signs down past the stoplight, big black house on the corner, you'll see it. So that's what I'm hoping to be able to do.
But, let's see. What would be, for example, your business hours?
They would start after 8. I do have twins still in 5th grade, so I wouldn't start before I drop them off to school. And I really, if we did anything late, I would consider late maybe 5:30, but I prefer to be done earlier. It kind of depends on the customers until I get going, but there won't be no 9 o'clock at night kind of thing.
Are you looking at weekdays or weekends?
Weekdays, yeah, maybe an occasional Saturday morning if needed. Other than that, no.
Okay.
You're talking 8 to 5, basically.
Basically, yeah, I'm sure there are gonna be some ladies I might need to do a little bit, but it'd be one person.
Now, right now, there's a restriction in the ordinance of 25% of the space of the floor being used. That's the limitation. You would be going beyond that. Is that still the case?
Yes,
Okay, how far beyond that?
I would say probably 75% total.
Of the main
Of the
floor or of the house?
Of the house, because the upstairs part, since I do waxing, that gets kind of intimate personal. So I would prefer to do that upstairs where we don't have windows, where you can have it private for someone. So that part upstairs would be used, and then there's a bathroom up there, so we'd be using that. And the tanning bed would be upstairs in one of the other bedrooms, so there's privacy for that. But the downstairs is just wide open, and that's for the nail pedicures, that sort of thing.
Would you be the only
I'll be
employee?
Only employee, yeah.
So you'd have to keep your eyes on the whole operation?
Yeah, because I can't, somebody's coming in to get waxed, so there's not gonna be anyone else there.
Yeah.
It's just,
How many, if both level two, it's 2-story. If both levels are being used, how many cars do you think might be there at any one time?
Technically, I would say 2 to 3. I don't really see unless somebody drops in on a spur of the moment kind of thing, but it'd be myself, the customer that I'm servicing, and then maybe the next client coming in. And that should really be it, unless somebody popped in.
They would be off-street
Off
parking?
street,
Okay.
Yeah.
In the
in the driveway.
driveway?
Yep.
Okay.
And there never would use that parking on Fifth Street. That entrance we do not use because that's just too busy with school, kids.
You're surrounded by other homes?
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah, okay.
Laundromats, 3 houses down.
But you're gonna maintain as far as just the home look to it. none of
Oh,
this-
yeah. I put a lot of money into those plants. So other than dividing them, that's about it.
Is there anything else about what you have in mind that you want the council to know that I haven't asked yet, that no one's asked yet?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Maybe at this point, I could turn it over to Doug, our city attorney. Doug, you've taken a look at the ordinance?
Yeah, I put together some notes for all of you. I tried to do some copies too. I apologize. I was late as well. I lost track of time actually talking to Brian. I apologize. Right now, your city code has kind of 2 options for an in-home business, one called a home occupation and one called a business enterprise. They're almost nearly identical. So in the memo, I point out the common terms. In the common terms section, I point out one common but yet slightly different. An in-home occupation is described as a business that has traditionally been carried out in the home, where a business enterprise says which may be carried out in the home. I don't know if that was an intentional difference of description, but so there is a slight difference in those descriptions, but I identified that as being somewhat common. Both the different terms, home occupations, really supposed to be operated by people who live in the residence, with some exceptions for a temporary employee, if approved by the Board of Adjustment, where the business enterprises can have one person who does not reside on the premises employed. And also has a parking requirement where the in-home does not. And then has some provisions for the Board of Adjustment with regard to if there's violations, how they get involved. One of the, in thinking about this particular request, some of the things that you have to think about potentially changing right out of the gate would be both of those provisions right now require the person to live there. For that thing, only 25% of the floor space can be used for either one, as Brian pointed out. It sounds like the employee situation wouldn't be something that would require a change from what she's requesting. Off-street parking technically doesn't come up in the home occupation. It does come up in the business enterprise. That doesn't sound maybe like too big an issue in this case. When you think about home occupations and business enterprises too, and I think I put in here, common provision of these sections, they want to maintain the integrity of the residential neighborhood. As mentioned, keeping everything looking and acting like a residence would be important. Something to think about is, let's say, listening to this proposal, you don't think it sounds like the worst thing in the world, it may make sense. To change your code to make it happen, you're probably changing your code not only to make this happen, but other things happen that haven't been requested yet. So whether, again, the big piece would be, are you comfortable having residential properties in town where you can have an in-home occupation or a business enterprise? Are you comfortable allowing that when you don't have the owner live there? Or does that turn it into too much more of a commercial use? Does it look like a commercial use? Because typically in your commercial situations, the owner doesn't live there. And that's the main difference between residential and commercial. And I think it's also very common in a lot of communities to have that limitation, again, because you want it to primarily be a residence. So you limit how much of it can be used for commercial purposes. You can't have things outside. You have to have small signage to the extent you have to. Typically, businesses in homes have I think this doesn't probably fit this by appointment, where you aren't having a flow of traffic for retail shopping. So with some of the pieces of this fit what your ordinance says, I think the two biggies would be how much of the house is getting used for commercial purposes and how much of it, and the fact that the owner doesn't live there. So I guess my biggest caution would be if you look to make some changes to your ordinance, thinking about how that might affect other requests that might not be as amenable to working in a residential neighborhood.
What about a situation where instead of the 25%, it goes to 75% of the entire structure, where you have a home that's in an area surrounded by other homes, and now its main purpose is commercial? You know, if there wasn't a request to rezone it to make it work under the zoning ordinance, people would say that's spot zoning. If the city does this, could it be said that it's like spot zoning without actually going through the end result of spot zoning?
So, and towards the back of the handout, on the last page, I just touched on spot zoning, because that's always a consideration too. If this is really going to become a structure used for commercial purpose, no residential use at all, the first thing to think about is, well, maybe it needs to be rezoned. I think that's highly unlikely here because of the fact that it's surrounded by residential properties. Now, it could be rezoned to maybe a duplex, a two-family unit situation, because that still kind of fits with single-family neighborhood. But spot zoning, I just put a real quick blurb in there what that means, but the creation of a small island of property with restrictions on it different than those around it. So I think definitely if it got rezoned and it was challenged, that would be spot zoning, it would be legal. I think if there's a difference here too, and not to get into the weeds of the variance, which is a board of adjustment thing, that would be, a request could be made, well, I need a variance because I can't quite follow these rules. There's other rules with variances that would really make that illegal. Doesn't mean it couldn't be requested, but would make it largely illegal based on Supreme Court analysis. But what Brian is saying is basically kind of a wink and a nod. Well, we aren't going to rezone except be spot zoning. You can go ahead and make it commercial, which would really be the same as spot zoning. But that becomes a problem if somebody challenges it. If nobody challenges it, it's not a problem. But the same end goal or the same result would be there, that you're allowing a single family residential home to be used as a commercial enterprise.
We could also write it as far as no more than 50% of the home, correct?
Yeah.
And that way you could still have, there could still be living quarters in the home, and if you use no more than 50%, then that could be written into the ordinance, correct?
Yep, and just be no policing whether anybody lives there or not.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And this could, I guess trying to play out how it could work. If it's set up where this ordinance is changed, it could be duplicated elsewhere. Would it have to be monitored in some way? I mean, can you, let's say, like Mike's suggestion, it's 50%. And somebody somewhere else goes ahead under the same ordinance and wants to proceed, but they go beyond 50%. Let's say they do that and it's found out to be the case. What happens then?
Well, odds are they'd get a notice saying you're violating the law. You must modify what you're doing to use less than 50%. So they do, and then 3 months later they're using 55%. It's just an enforcement headache for sure. So, but if somebody continued to violate it, the city would have the right to give them a notice and cite them under the municipal infraction chapter. So you couldn't do that, but you have to have some way of propose with in-home businesses. You could put in-home occupation or business enterprises require a license that would require an annual inspection, allow you to go in there and look at what's going on and seek compliance, and if they're out of compliance, you could revoke the license. That would be another potential way of managing it. If you're of a mind that, what would be the category that I could call this business? Not healthcare, instead of healthcare, what would you call it?
Like a mini spa, I mean, I don't, what's your,
I mean, when I think traditionally, and I was talking to Brian about this.
Beauty care
earlier,
possibly?
it
beauty
falls
care?
kind of under
Yeah.
cosmetics, you go to the
Yeah,
same
cosmetic
school.
beauty care sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of small towns have, beauticians that work out of their house,
Yeah.
but they live there and it's a small room or maybe a big room, but I think that's kind of common, and obviously the times are changing and more people work at home. And if the council was of a mind that, somebody doing this kind of stuff in a house is something that works. I don't want somebody setting up a kind of an antique store in their house where people just come and go all the time. That's a different environment. Could possibly, with enough specificity, modify the ordinance to just really, really, really limit it to saying kind of, this is where I was trying to get it, something to describe it by, but beauty care type professions where it's, the owner of the property is the sole party that works there, and the people that are served by it come by appointment only, that there's no, retail type business. And then if you wanted to be concerned about, if we did limit it to 50, 75%, whatever
If
that
you keep
number
it
is.
50% of the house, you think?
Oh, it could,
You could have,
because,
look, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, just, yeah, the way my place is set up, I think it would be a big area, you're just walking through to go to the other spots, I just included it without seeing how my house is set up. The door you walk through, it's just was my kitchen, and so you have to walk through that, but I don't see where that would be. For actual using space, if we consider that, that would be very easy to do with 50.
I think if you had the application process where you're required that a diagram be turned in and identify which portions were going to be used for business purposes. And if you wanted to have, it wouldn't be about the money you'd make off a registration application, but, just having something on paper as to what it's going to be and how it's going to be operated, and then an annual inspection just to confirm if there's ever violations, the right to revoke that privilege, I guess.
Just to be clear, and I know you already own the home, but have you found that commercial space elsewhere in the city is not viable for you?
No, it's just not what, to fit all our special needs, because the kids are still in school, it's easy for them to walk to. The type of industry I want peace and quiet, so that's where the residential comes next, other than somebody mowing the lawn or the next door neighbor with little screaming, it's really quiet there, and that's what I'd like to keep. It just, yeah. Ease of access. It just works. I own it outright, I have no debt on it, so I really did not want to incur another debt, especially since we just bought an acre.
Well, whenever the work session ends, we have an item on the agenda for when the regular meeting happens, where if the council is ready to decide on going forward or not, or going forward under what scenario, you have that chance. On the other hand, if you're not settled on where to go, you can always table it and think about it for until the next meeting. But I just wanted to point out, this is a work session to discuss it, then we're gonna have the item come up in a little while under the meeting.
Because just to make sure, changing ordinance means ordinance for the whole town, not just a section, not just a block.
Like you said, specify what goes in the ordinance as far as what kind of business can be done.
Yeah, you might get requests to expand on that as time goes by. Could be other things.
Yeah, that could happen. And
But in-home healthcare or in-home beauty care, I mean,
Yeah.
What's to say she didn't do it already without us knowing about it? She's trying to do it the right way. That's all I'm saying, you know.
Yep. The big thing when it comes to ordinances and even variances, the goal or the requirement the Supreme Court's put in place is you need to try to treat everybody the same, that is situated the same. So in essence, we were saying, everybody is doing kind of that in-home beauty care, we're gonna treat it this way.
Right.
Then you might get somebody down the road that says, well, I want to want a law office and do taxes. And I'll always have appointments and I'm gonna use my house. Do they have that same privilege or is there something different about that? I don't know, maybe there's always gonna be other examples you don't think about.
Well, and you could have the example of somebody who currently maybe rents downtown saying, I could do it for less than a house. And so they leave a commercial area for a residential area. I mean, that's always possible. You get into these things and, I mean, I don't think you would do anything that would go south, go bad at your property. I'm trying to think of unintended consequences if this thing is opened up.
Well, and how detailed do you make it? I mean, you can do a dog spa. I mean, how detailed are you gonna make it? Is it gonna be a day spa for human people? I mean, you could, what if we decide, somebody else sees that and they decide that they wanna start doing a dog salon and doing nails and hair trim and whatever.
I think that's come up in other communities too, dog grooming particularly.
Because that's a big thing. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, and a lot of cities require, I think like yours too, the in-home business needs to be in the primary residence, not in this accessory structure, so not in the garage or an outbuilding of sorts. And a lot of times your dog groomers will want to be kind of in the garage or take over something else. Yeah, that's definitely, that issue's come up in other communities I've worked with, that specifically.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? Jason, Tim? All right, no, that's for that thing.
Did you, I apologize.
I know for sure.
I know this,
He would
but I
reply
don't
to
recall. What did you say about signage? What was your plan?
Just a little one in my driveway. So we know they're coming up there. I mean, just something so you verify, yes, this is the Black House, but like, yeah. That 2 foot by 2 foot would probably be kind of big and a little awkward in where I'm looking at. I'm smaller.
All right. Montgomery's house. All right. That satisfies all the questions. Then, let me look at this. I will ask for a motion to adjourn this work session. Cummins with the first and Helm with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Bastian,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Cummins.
All right, so we will adjourn that and then we'll move on to the council meeting. Unless anybody needs to take a break. Been fast and furious up here. All right. Then I will call to order this with a roll call. Council at large Cummins.
Here.
At large Bastian.
Yes.
Ward number 1 Hembry. Ward number 2 Helm.
Yes.
And Ward number 3 McNeil.
Here.
All right, so now it's the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we'll move down to the communications portion. And we do have David Bisbee is scheduled. He is online, actually.
We did that.
Oh, yeah,
We amended that.
sorry. I just moved on down, didn't I? There is a change to the agenda that Melissa would like to make.
In your item number 14, the discussion and possible action to approve the repairs of coax related to AMI, we also included information to replace the base station. We just didn't get that in the motion. So that motion would also include replacement of the base station. But you've already had that information.
All right, so now with that change, sorry, what, is there a motion to approve this agenda?
Motion.
McNeil with the first and Cummins with the second.
Cummins, McNeil,
Yes.
Posturing,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
So now we'll move on down to the communications, and we have David Bisbee. He is online. And he's our only scheduled one. And yes, you got a green microphone. David, if you want to talk, we'll make sure we can hear you.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
So my proposal tonight, my whole thing that I'm bringing forth to the city of Tipton is we've formed a nonprofit organization called CCFP. I'm sure y'all are aware of. We are based out of Stanwood, but we operate out of Cedar County. We are fully insured. We are 100% legal with the feds, state government, everything of the sort. Moving forward, now last year, I pretty much wrote you guys a $10,000 blank check for the fireworks show, and brought a fireworks show that I've heard a lot of good comments. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just proud of what I was able to do for the community. Moving forward, we have 4 major scheduled events with our organization in Cedar County. And one being, well, we'll start with the first one. March 19th is St. Patty's Day dinner and dance out at the Matthews Building. We've got, of course, July 4th. We've got the fairgrounds rented. And then we've got, what's next? The Halloween. We have a haunted house planned for Cedar County. And all this will be taking place in Tipton or surrounding Tipton. And then also we have the Christmas Winter Wonderland that we just did December 18th, I believe it was. My wife is in the audience there as a spectator to fill in any questions that I might be overlooking or answers to any of your questions. What we're looking to do is alleviate some of the stress off of the city and take over the complete 4th of July event for the city of Tipton, as well as Cedar County, minus the annual parade, because I'm not about to try to step into that realm. We are busy enough with our activities and our events that we already have planned with the committee that I have. We are growing, and we just took in 2 new members on our board membership last week, and it's continuously growing. So I do have the amount of people that I need to pull this off, and without even having a contract through J&M this year, which I understand they proposed you guys a bid, and like I try to tell the city or the Chamber of Commerce, look, fireworks are double the triple this year. They really are, and that's no joke at all. A container coming in from China typically costs $15,000. This year it's $50,000, and that's just because of all the garbage and all the issues in between the countries. I am still at that $14,000 budget. If you guys approve that for the fireworks this year, I'm willing to go above and beyond again this year, and add another $10,000 to that personally, and put money into that to bring an even bigger and better show than what we had last year. And included with that is $10,000 that we already have out of pocket for all the activities that we have on the grounds of the fairgrounds from noon to 8:30 p.m. We've already got 5 stage acts. We've got a band. We've got all kinds of activities that's going to last all day. And it's very age appropriate. I don't care if you're a toddler or a 75-year-old couple. Everything is included. And this is a free event. And yes, we are going around. We are trying to get sponsorship for this because it is a lot of money. But our goal is if you build it, they will come. And my opinion, Cedar County, Tipton especially, needs people brought in. And we are advertising like crazy. We just put a post in for our March event in Walcott, Walcott, Durant, and Wilton. And we're also going to be publicizing through Cedar County through the Gazette as well, or the local paper, the Conservative as well. I am asking because we are fully insured for all the activities on the ground that we're bringing to the grounds. The fireworks themselves, I work closely as a shooter for J&M Display out of Yarmouth, Iowa, who you guys contracted last year. I work closely with Jim, the owner, and he knows me. I know him. We've had many meetings, and I can come in and give you a better quality show than as opposed to just a city entity contracting a contractor to come in. You know what I mean? So I personally can go to Jim and be like, okay, I want this show. This is what I need. He'll throw me a price, and that's the way it'll be. And I know we can put this together. We did it last year with just 2 to 3 people. And I was told it was one of the best shows that Tipton's ever seen. I'm not disputing anything that the fire department has done in the past. I think they've done a great job. And I am looking forward to carry this tradition on and do this annually, because we're not looking to just do this one time and move on. We're looking to do this every year. My wife and I just took possession of the motel. All the paperwork just got signed today. So, I mean, we're looking to plant our feet and really make a name for our county. We really are. I'm looking at many communities around us, and I'm talking to people in other counties around us that are wanting to come this year. We've got many people that heard about our show this year, and that's not including any of our acts or our stage acts or anything on the grounds that we're bringing to the table this year. I mean, it's going to be big this year, and I'm very excited. Without even having a contract, I'm super excited. You know, because if you guys choose not to use J&M or myself or CCFP as the primary for the fireworks show, then you know what, I'll move on to another county and give them the same show. And it's not that I'm trying to be rude about this. It's just, you know, this is my passion. I'd rather keep my passion in my hometown and let everybody enjoy it, you know, and we're keeping it at a very, very minimal cost. So with that being said, you know, I don't know what questions you might have for me or what else I could explain to you, I guess.
Does anybody have any questions right now? I don't know if we have any right now, just kind of taking it all in, but.
I know it is a lot, and it is, I know you guys have done things in the past at the park, and I understand that. And I did attend, I don't know, a couple of years when I was in town truck driving. But I'm looking to build it even bigger. You know what I mean? And I was told that, well, why are you putting all that money out? Because you don't get no response from it, and that's why we quit doing it. It costs too much money. You guys don't have to worry about it. You know what I mean? I'm not asking you. I am asking, I guess, one stipulation of us taking over the complete 4th of July event minus the annual parade would be, I do need a generator, you know, which you guys did offer me and give me last year, which worked out beautiful. And I talked to the city employees that brought it out, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're so happy to be a part of this. You know, so moving forward, that's the only thing I would require of the city or need from the city. You know, obviously we'll do all of our own fundraising, and we're looking at other towns around us that create Cedar County. Like, look, you guys all have a firework ban in your cities. Let's unite and bring it all to Tipton where it's safe, it's secure, and we have the room to do it. That's our biggest goal, is to unite all of our surrounding communities that create Cedar County, as well as other counties around us. I mean, if you go through the parking lot this year, if you guys push this forward and allow us to do this, I guarantee you go through that parking lot this year and you will see many different counties. I promise you this. And the business that it will bring to Cedar County for an all-day event, you know, it's just, I see it as a win-win. I guess I'm not looking at any cons because I don't see any. I don't feel any, you know what I mean? And nobody has brought any to my attention that would be an issue. So
All right.
that's where we stand, I guess.
Yep.
Just if I could ask, this is Brian.
Yes, sir.
When you say all the 4th of July minus the parade, what else beyond the fireworks does that include that the city did except for the parade? What would you be taking on?
Okay, what we would be taking on is, for instance, as of right now, we have the fairgrounds reserved for the 4th of July, the whole fairgrounds. And they're allowing us to come in, set up, and tear down in 24 hours, which we have no problem doing. We did it last year, we can do it this year. What it includes, though, is the annual parade usually gets over around noon, 11, 12 o'clock, somewhere in there. We're going to open the gates at the fairgrounds at noon. It's a free admission. We are still going to take donations, of course, you know, and we're working with the VFW, we're working with the Lions Club, we're working with everybody in the community. And what we're looking to do is have a day of fun activity at the fairgrounds from noon to 8. At 8 o'clock, we're going to shut a lot of the activities down and get everybody rotating towards the grandstands, where we have a really big act coming in for a pre-show, if you will, from 8:30 to 9:30 before we start the fireworks. Of course, 9:30 is the earliest we can shoot fireworks because of the sun, and you want the full effect of the fireworks. So as we did last year, 9:30 is the soonest we can light fireworks, with weather permitting, of course. I mean, we do have a lot riding on this because a lot of our acts, a lot of our activities, things like that are non-refundable. And we've already put some serious deposits down that are just non-refundable if anything goes south as far as weather or anything, or if we have to reschedule.
All right. All right. Any other questions for David or his wife too? She's here too. I think there are none. Well, David, thank you for coming up with this, and we'll definitely take it under advisement. Love your enthusiasm, and thanks for hopping on tonight.
Okay, if I may reiterate real quick, I know J&M has sent you guys a bid, and typically that's not how this works with fireworks. And I'm only saying that you guys want a 25, 30-minute show. Okay, I understand that. But with a budget of, say, $10,000, and I was told in the past it's only $5,000 to $8,000, which is very small. I mean, you're going to get a one shot, and you're going to have pretty much an intermission, then you're going to get another shot. And with the cost of the inflation of fireworks, our committee, our organization is willing to pound the pavement and get the sponsors in order to bring even more fireworks and a bigger production this year than even last year. And last year you guys had a great I shot last year, and it was a third party's equipment, a third party's supply, and we still pulled it off. And I'm guaranteeing that if I'm able to get in there and get J&M on board, which I know Jim is willing to do, and work with me and our organization to bring this every year, that it'll be a spectacular show, even more so than last year. And every year we can build on it and make it even more spectacular. So that's that. And then, you know, the importance of the necessity of the urgency of this, I guess, is, you know, obviously, you know, we've got a lot of money on the line, and I know I've prematurely done this, but this is what our organization does. And we're just trying to prove to the communities that we're not going nowhere. You know, this is what we want for our communities is a lot of fun, a lot of free activity, you might say.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for jumping on tonight. And thank you for your patience too with us getting on a little bit later.
Absolutely.
All right. So he was our only scheduled one. If there's anybody else that would like to address the council, they definitely can. Just move over to the podium and state your name for the record. All right, seeing if there are none, we'll move on down to the consent agenda, which these are items that can be enacted with one motion. It's the approval of the special council meeting minutes from January 31st, approval of the council meeting minutes from February 7th, approval of the special council meeting minutes on February 17th. Also the approval of to purchase memory upgrade chips, and also the approval of the claims register, which includes claims paid under the current purchase policy. Do any of these need to be pulled out? Since there are none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Helm with the first and Cummins with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Bastian,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Cummins.
All right, now down to number 7, it's a public hearing. This public hearing is to, for the purpose of considering the maximum tax dollars from certain levies for the city's proposed fiscal year 22 to 23 budget. I do need a motion to open the public hearing. McNeil with the first and Cummins with the second.
Bastian,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Hembry.
Uh,
Sorry, he's coming.
All right, the public hearing is open. Melissa?
You should all have a extra piece of paper in front of you that is the proposed property tax levy in that column. There are 4 columns. That first column is our current year's taxes. The first column shows the taxable valuation, and then below that is the total tax dollars that we are receiving from levies this year. Down at the bottom, the second from the bottom is the total tax, the tax rate is the last one, which is 12.85. The second column is the new valuation that we have. And then if we left all those other levies the same as we have this current tax year, you'll see that down at the bottom, we increased our valuation. So our tax rate has dropped, which would be expected. Then that third column is the new valuation, and then our proposed tax levies for fiscal year 22-23. Those levies, as I'd mentioned in a prior meeting, increase. They take into consideration wage increases, liability, property, and self-insurance cost increases were estimated at 10%, as well as employee benefits to increase 6%. So that was reflected in those. Then that fourth column is the percent of increase of the tax rate, which is the 9.42%. So it would need a supermajority to pass the resolution further on down. As of close of business today, though, I had not received any comments regarding the public.
All right, any questions for Melissa? And nobody out there? All right. If there's no questions for Melissa, we can, if I could get a motion to close the public hearing. Cummins with the first and McNeil with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Bastian,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Cummins.
All right, so down to the city business, number 8. This is discussion and possible action concerning any amendments to the business enterprise ordinance. This is the item from the previous work session.
If you want to think about it, you don't have to
Yeah.
decide tonight. It's just,
I want to table it.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
So motion to table from McNeil and second from Cummins.
Bastian,
yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
All right, so it's been tabled for a future date after we do some more research. All right, number 9, discussion and possible action concerning the proposed Friends of Animals site and development of a special use permit by the city attorney. And,
I think maybe we could turn it over to Doug.
oh, all right,
He has a handout
Yeah.
that he put out for you.
So, the question that was done to me is, with regard to the building and use of a piece of property for what I'll call an animal shelter, how that would work in Tipton, what building might be the most appropriate, and if it fell in the category of a special use permit, should there be some special language applied? And we go a whole lot of ways with that. So what I started by doing, one, identifying where this is proposed to be located, just looking at it kind of on a map, getting a feel for the area. It's my understanding it's zone C1 local commercial district right now, so the memo kind of identified what that is. The definition. there's a number of things in all your zoning classifications are permitted uses and then some, conditional uses. So permitted are always perfectly okay. Then you jump to the next category, and then sometimes there's some hoops to jump through to make that work with a special use permit, for example. So looking at that, in the permitted uses, first of all, in the language of the ordinance under C1, the goal of C1 is to accommodate the daily or frequent shopping needs of the neighborhood, the consumer, including retailing of goods purchased for use in the home, furnishing of personal services, et cetera. So that doesn't sound like an animal shelter, but that was my first take when I read that. And then when you start reading through permitted uses, automobile parking lot, bank, gasoline stations, office buildings, retail stores, private schools, theaters, laundry, dry cleaning, florists, those all seem to make sense with that initial definition. And then we jump into special use permit, and under all of your different zoning classifications, the special use permit language is pretty consistent from one to the other to the other. So the things that show up in the special use permit section, you can get a special permit to do that in a residential, commercial, industrial. They're all kind of the same, which is a little unique. I think if you look at the animal shelter, I don't know that you want to make that a potential special use permit option in residential, for example. You might want to limit it to the C1, because when you jump into the C1 special use permit, which again is like the others, talking about museums, bed and breakfast, public buildings, community buildings, recreation fields, hospitals, cemeteries, funeral homes, TV towers, etc. So thinking about an animal shelter, and I've got, I'll say limited experience with an animal shelter, but I think relevant experience. When I was in Monticello, we had one go in, and everybody's very supportive. They raised money, put it in kind of out on the edge of town. In our case, it was just outside of town, but outside the city limits. But yet it still impacts the town. An animal shelter has cats and dogs, other things, and dogs bark, especially when you get a bunch of them together, and you can hear them depending where you live. And I don't want to say it created a lot of complaints, but it did create some, complaints. So if you wanted to drop animal shelter, just outside of downtown, I think that would be a terrible idea. But having one in your community is a good idea. And so if you look at this piece of property, where it's located, just, kind of out on the edge of town, is probably as good a location as you might find. So if you wanted to think about how that might work in your ordinance, I think under the C1 or under the M1 as a special use permit, you could put some language in that would be kind of similar to the language that's listed on the special use permit for a hospital. For example, you could require that the lot be a certain size. Maybe it has to be at least 2 acres or 3 acres or 4 acres. You could require that the structure itself not occupy over a certain percentage of that total acreage. You could require fencing and screening. You could put conditions on, if they have an outside area for the dogs to run, kind of like a dog park, that the dogs all have to be inside by a certain time of night so they aren't up there barking. Bring on. So those are all things you could think about in trying to limit the potential impact this might have on other property owners. I think in looking at the map, the closest property owner that could.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm not 100% sure if everybody's 100% sure on where.
Oh, we don't have the map.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they didn't have the map over
We don't
there.
have a map over here.
good now.
Oh, okay. Okay, so out on Spruce Street, just past Amoson's. All right, sorry.
No, you're fine. So I think in talking to Brian, there's an assisted living type center, not too far away.
Right.
And then maybe some apartments or the apartments down the road towards car dealer.
No, it's more office.
Offices.
Yeah.
So, I don't know
Yeah.
from a crow fly standpoint, how it's not on top of each other, but they're relatively close. So as far as
Yep, there's.
thinking of who may be impacted, I would think the biggest risk would be the assisted living center with the animals. It might be a good relationship too. Some people in assisted living may want to interact and be part of that. Give something to volunteer. Looking at your zoning ordinance, actually, probably
Yeah, there we go.
the general business district under principal permitted uses is a veterinarian or animal hospital. And while that's different, clearly than an animal shelter, that's probably closer to an animal shelter than some of the things in your C1 ordinance. That's another consideration, even like talking on the other topic tonight. Would it make sense to look at that area from a rezoning standpoint as opposed to a special use standpoint? And there again, you look at what's around it, because you can't just pick out that one piece of property and make it C2. You have to make kind of that area C2. If you made that area C2, you could then in theory either put the animal shelter in as a permitted use, or you could still have it be a conditional use, but maybe you make it a conditional use in C2, not a conditional use in C1, if you think that makes more sense.
I think in this case, if you look at the zoning map, that C1 is, there's not a lot of C1 property in the city. It's basically right here and then in the area, for the most part, where the bowling alley is. And so if you're looking at a special use permit where it requires a lot of a certain size in that zone, there's almost no room anywhere else in that zone except here to do it. You know, we were trying to see, is there a way that we could narrowly write this so that it isn't easy to duplicate? That would be one way to do it. Now, we're not, this area here that's shown as the possible site, we're not sure how big that is yet. I assume it's a few acres. Does that sound right?
Been talking 2 to 3 acres.
Okay. Yeah.
That hasn't been decided yet.
Yeah. So, you know, in that particular zone, there just aren't really a lot of 2 or 3 acre options, you know. Now, this site is on gravel, and there is no current plan to go that far south with pavement. Does that make a problem?
We were under the assumption that eventually it was going to be paved.
I can't say when. There's been talk of paving from South Street going past Amoson's. That's as far it's been talked about.
I guess we look at it this way. There's not many options. We need it to be within the city limits because we would like to use the grants that we can get, and you know what I mean. We would like it to be close to the bike path because we would like to get children involved out there. We need it to be in a central location to where elderly can get out to us too, because I've had numerous elderly say that we're retired, we need something to do. We'd like to come help. Our facility we have now, obviously, we're not letting them in there because that is a disaster like to happen. So I guess the non-pavement is not a deal breaker for us. It'd be great if it was because it would hold down the dust, because we're gonna have to have air exchange on every room in there, a different air exchange for that room only, which will suck dust in. So if it could be paved at some point down the road, that would be wonderful. Understanding it would not happen overnight.
Now, where you're at now, you know, Doug mentioned the barking. Now, I don't remember hearing a lot about complaints in your current location. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate.
As long as we've been involved with it, we haven't had anyone call us and complain about it. Now, the dogs bark when you put them out in the morning, whatever, they bark because they all they do their thing. Once you get them out, they usually don't bark. When you go back outside again, they'll start barking because they see people, but they don't just stand out there and bark all day.
The only other time you'll have them barking is when we get one in that has high anxiety due to abuse or something like this. But the rule of the shelter now, since we got involved, is you have to tether that dog inside to you because it helps build that dog's trust back up in people and helps the barking decrease. And by the end of the week, we can usually work a dog out of the stress and anxiety to the point where we can put the dog outside. And to the point where I could put a shoe outside to where I can see the tip of the shoe and just stick my head out, or somebody else sticks their head out every 5 minutes, and the dog's okay. If it doesn't work, then we bring the dog back in, and we continue to work the dog until we get worked out, but we don't just leave them out there just to bark.
In your new facility, the concept, after a certain hour, would the dogs be inside?
We try during the winter hours, they're in before dark, because I don't like them out after dark. During the summer, we try to get them in by 8:30 is the last they can be out. Now, with that said, if it's super hot out, they're in way before that, because we don't like them to be out in the heat at all. I will say in the new shelter, I can't say this is actually going to happen, because we're just still looking at ways to do it. But we're actually going to have them in an enclosed top on it. So when they bark, the sounds go up rather than everywhere else. And I'm hoping that we can do a sound barrier up also that will help confine some of that to help. So when they're outside, the barking, I don't think is going to be as bad as what people have led other people to believe it can be. Our dogs are also trained now down there that if they're barking when they're even out of control in the shelter, when somebody comes in and out, you can step out of the office and give them that's enough. We don't allow shut up. We don't allow any of that talk down there. It's duck mouth it with your hand and wave your hand below means no. It means that's enough. And that shelter will go quiet, no matter what. I think you were there and seen it go quiet.
Yeah.
And we can go outside and do the exact same thing, and the whole backyard will just go boom, and it's quiet. So we work with them. We have people down there that work twice a day on the training with them. It's not like it used to be where they were just in a pen and adopted out.
In point of fact, at our house, our dogs are gonna start barking in 17 minutes. That's feeding time.
And I think sometimes you guys, I think the shelter kids somehow blame for barking dogs. In reality, check your backyards. Because I went by, I know of 2 houses down by where we were closing the shelter at first. And I know you know of one.
Oh, I do. I'm the one that told you about her.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And that's a barking mess.
that's a disaster.
All right.
That's just another point.
I guess-
So,
Well, I'm sorry. Well, one question I think for the council. The proposed location, any thoughts about that? Are we?
I think that was pretty decent, right?
yeah, I think it's,
I like it.
yeah.
I mean, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Me neither.
I mean,
You
you need
something to
something.
go around
We
and
need
find.
something and I think it's going to win all the way around.
Mhm. And so then, if there is a motion, what are we looking for?
I think you're authorizing the city attorney to develop an ordinance,
No plan.
maybe bring it back for consideration, first reading. Is that how you would see it?
Yeah, going into it with the goal being that you like the site, you like what they're proposing to do, but you don't want to write the ordinance in a way, not that there would be, but they start popping up all over. You kind of want to try to limit it.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I'd
Yep.
probably visit with these folks about, a little bit more detail, the size of the building, the size of the lot, and try to include some of that language into the code that, kind of makes it.
Right now, you're just in C2, correct? Or is that C1? Oh,
No, this is,
One.
that is C1?
Yep.
Okay. That location looks fine.
all
I'll
right.
make the motion to approve.
Second.
McNeil with the motion to approve and Cummins with the second.
Helm,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Postian,
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, you guys. All right. So the next one is discussion and possible action concerning the update on reworking the 4th and Main green space project and maybe move to a request for proposals rather than a traditional bidding format. Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, we met with the company that we've been working with, and
Wait, which company?
CRS. There, it's the same company that came in over the go-to
Oh, okay.
meeting a while back, and they were showing concept drawings.
Not our engineers, but
They were in on it, and then our, the engineer was in on it.
Okay.
And by removing some of the things from the project, they're in the belief that they can get it back to the project budget amount that you were okay with working with. Back when we met with them, the 240,000. What we would like to do is set up a meeting with them again for the meeting a week from tonight, March 7th, where they can do a presentation now of what they have in mind. And that then would include a resolution to authorize a grant application like the one we tried for last year with the DNR. It'll be set up to authorize it, but if the council doesn't favor the project as presented, it doesn't have to be passed. But in order to get it in on time, if the city does proceed, we have to put a resolution on the next agenda. One of the questions I had for Doug was, the company we're working with thought that we could save on the cost of the engineering if the project was done as a request for proposals, which would mean that instead of speccing it out like a city would for a traditional bid, like what was proposed at the last meeting, they instead would react to a request for proposals where we describe the project. It's kind of like build to suit in a way. We describe the project that we would like to see constructed. We put it out for proposals. More than likely, they would be the only one that would respond. They would hire Origin or what was IIW to do the engineering, but not as formal bids. It would just be a matter of coming up with plan sheets where they could take bids. And they think that they can save quite a bit on, to get back down to the budget amount that you were more comfortable with. Now, one of the questions I had for Doug was, with these other situations, they had examples of other cities in Iowa that have used the RFP method to do this type of project or to do park equipment and design and install park equipment. And those examples were Davenport, Muscatine, and I'm not sure what the other one was, but there were three. And so I asked Doug about the RFP method and using it as those other cities had used it, but we hadn't had a chance to talk about what your opinion was.
And I didn't look at the other cities' examples too closely. Usually thinking about it, wouldn't be an identical project, but I've done that with a playground project where the RFP, includes an obligation on the bidder to provide the plan sheets and to put that together. So I don't know why that wouldn't work. I didn't have a chance to pull the Iowa code to say right here is why this is okay, but I know it happens. So I think you could go that route. I want to give you a little bit more detail as to why, but I would almost bet if we pulled the Davenport or one of those other options, they may even reference the code sections that makes it okay for them. But
So I guess what we're asking for is the chance to let them come back and do the presentation at your meeting a week from tonight.
Yeah. That won't work, can't hurt.
I can hear it.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't necessarily need a motion for this. I just wanted to get, is there a consensus to go forward with next week? So that's all I have for that.
All right. All right, then moving on down to number 11, it's a resolution that would approve the maximum tax dollars from certain levies for the city's proposed fiscal year of 2023 budget. Melissa?
This is just the resolution approving what we spoke about in the public hearing. The maximum dollars.
All right. Any new questions for Melissa? Seeing there are none, is there a motion to approve this? Cummins with the first
Second.
and McNeil with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Postian,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Cummins,
All right, the next one, which is a resolution that would set the time and place for a public hearing for the purpose of soliciting written and oral comments on the city's proposed fiscal year 22-23 budget. Melissa?
This resolution would set March 21st at 5:30 to be the public hearing for the fiscal year 22-23 budget. As we spoke about in the budget workshop, the post-tax rate would be 16.61884, which was based off of what we talked in the budget workshop, with the increased costs with the debt service levy. And that is the difference between the two resolutions, is that first one did not include the debt service levy, and this one is the full levy amount.
All right. If there are no questions or comments for Melissa, is there a motion to approve this public hearing?
Motion.
McNeil with the first and Cummins with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Postian,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Cummins,
All right, now we'll move down to number 13, which is a resolution that would authorize the payment of the remaining retainage for the Highway 38 Cedar Street project Phase 1. Mr. Wagner?
Previously, the council approved the project as complete and did it by resolution, but our engineering firm asked that we not include the retainage yet in that resolution until they felt it was more ready to release. And so we've now been given that notice. And so we looked to see if that other resolution approved retainage at this future point in time. It didn't, so we're bringing it back as another resolution.
All right. Any questions for Brian on this? Seeing there are none, is there a motion to approve this payment?
Motion.
McNeil with the first and Cummins with the second.
Postian,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Cummins, McNeil,
Yes.
All right, to number 14, which is discussion of possible action concerning the approval to make repairs to the coax related to the AMI antenna and also to purchase the base station. Melissa? Yeah.
In each utility CIP, we had a line in there for AMI, which we've been working towards the last couple of years. It was one of the council goals also to do. And so that is scheduled to be done in 24-25. Leading up to that, though, we've been working with Dan Ashford, who's been a part of this process since the beginning.
Melissa, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Dan is online too.
Fabulous. So he'll be able to answer some questions too. But just, I guess Dan can go ahead and start explaining a little bit more of the proposals for the information that he gave us for the current base station and then the coax part of the antenna that is not working.
All right, Mr. Ashworth, if you want to turn your microphone on.
We green?
Yes, yes.
All right, good. Thank you for your time. Yeah, to add on what Melissa is saying, so I should have looked back at when that antenna was installed, but with this trying to move forward in the 24-25 budget year, we are trying to be a little proactive and see what resources we can use that you guys already have. And so we had a tower company, Finnish Tower out of Hiawatha, come up and do some sweep tests. And they swept the antenna. The antenna is perfectly fine. But then when they swept the coax, they had to continue to cut back the coax, and the sweep just continued to get worse. I did provide pictures from that inspection, and on one of them where they cut the coax, I mean, you almost can see the water dripping out of the coax. So the coax is not usable. So the first line item there that you guys have is to make Finnish Tower whole and for the work that they completed on that, I believe it was a Wednesday, 2 weeks ago. And then the second part is their quote to run new coax, attach it to the antenna that will work, and then go into the new base station, which is the addendum that Melissa mentioned at the beginning of the meeting.
All right. Do you guys have-
One correction, the lead time actually is probably at, which probably will help the situation, is now at probably 32 weeks, like everything else. So keep that in mind. It's one of those things too, is if you guys say, yes, purchase that TGB, once we get the PO into census, sometimes we can get them to push it a little bit quicker. So 32 weeks is what the lead time sheet says as of last Monday from census.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Dan or Melissa? This phone. No.
That's not me. Dan, I guess one question is, we had equipment waiting there for a while that didn't really get used, and now it needs to be replaced. Are we making a good decision by buying it now? Or if we buy it, do we install it? Do we keep it boxed until the rest of the project goes forward? Or do
Right, and I don't even know where 32 weeks puts us. So we're looking, when we say the 24-25 budget, you're looking at July 1 of 2024, correct?
Yes.
About a year and a half away?
Yeah.
Around there, okay. I would say we don't need to purchase it today. I would say when we kind of get closer to that 24-25 budget, we can look and see what lead times are and kind of just keep an overall view of where that lead time is, and then push the button and get it ordered and wait our line in the queue type of thing.
What about the pricing?
Well, that price would be good here for this year. And who knows what, with everything that has happened, we can hold that price for, we're in March, roughly March 1st. We should not see another price increase until at least January of next year, which would be 23. So we're still a year away.
Well, we have to get this. You could wait, or you could give the staff the authority to purchase it at any time between now and then.
But as Brian asked, I don't think it got answered. If we do purchase this, can it just stay in a box somewhere?
Yes. Yeah, it comes in a box, and, we've had in this, time here in the last year and a half with delays and things, where waiting for antennas and other projects, the TGB sat in a box until the installer was ready to get it going. So simple answer is yes, you could get it ordered, have it in a safe spot, keep it in its original packaging, and then plug it in later.
When I imagine it has a warranty. When would that kick in? When we take it out of the box, or when the box arrives?
I would say probably when the box arrives. But I can look at, I think there is, maintenance programs, there's different ones. What I can look at doing is covering an extended warranty or extended maintenance to get you through that next year type of thing. So if you take possession of it, let's just say you bought it January of 23, your warranty is good until January of 24, which would be halfway through your 24-25 budget. I can get an additional maintenance that then would get you through to the January of 25. Just to give you that original 1-year warranty per se of it coming out of the box.
Okay. Now, when you said I can get you, does that mean that there's a charge for that or that?
No, I'll cover it. I'll look and see what I've got as far as there are some special projects that we have that we can, what we call dividends money. So we would pay for it and you would receive the extended maintenance.
Do you have any thoughts?
No, well, maybe, I guess. If you all remember back a while back in our contract for the wastewater plant, we had an option to go with the pumps for $100,000. At the time, we could save on, if we waited, forego that option, bought those pumps on our own. The inflation bubble that we're on now, that's proving that maybe that wasn't the best decision. We maybe should have went ahead with that. I worry about the price increases. I'm leaning towards, if you guys gave us the go ahead tonight, maybe Dan and us, we would maybe push the purchase off till December. And that gains us 9 months. That's the way I'd recommend doing it. Approve it tonight.
Yeah,
We'll stall, order it later and get this thing going.
yeah, and then get the extended warranty. I would, we've got the funding now.
Been saving for this.
Yeah.
Prices are good until at least the first year, correct?
Right.
All right.
Correct.
I'm gonna say my feeling is we wait till December. What are we out? We're waiting to see if this bubble is gonna come back down.
Right.
I mean, we already got this price pretty much locked until then.
Right.
Which I agree with you, but let's just write it out and see what we got. I mean, we're really not go. Yeah. Good.
All right. So is that a motion to give the staff the flexibility to purchase when necessary?
I'll make the motion.
Second it.
Pasha with the first and Helm with the second.
Cummins?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Pashton? Helm?
Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you for jumping on, Dan.
No problem. Thank you for your time.
All right, down to number 15, which is discussion of possible action concerning the water main pipe purchase. Mr. Brennan?
Yeah, so you have newer plastic along Cedar Street, and then, of course, the Triple B project will be getting finished up here this spring. That's North Avenue. Well, that corridor between Cedar and North Avenue, there's one block of old cast iron main that connects that. It's under 11th Street. When we made plans to pave North Avenue, everybody here knows how rough 11th Street is. We added that in, and last fall, while crossing this cast iron main, it's a 4-inch, and it had really bad pitting in it, really bad corrosion, so bad that the Triple B crew wanted us to get in there and take a look at it. So we did, and Mainstream and Kim looked at it also. It'd probably be not a very good decision to pave over that and have to tear the street up. So Steve is willing to have his crew put that in. It's about 162 feet overall. The quote from Municipal Supply is $4,804 for 8-inch PVC. They have 36,000 feet on hand in their yard out there, which surprised me. So we rounded up to 200. That's a couple extra sticks, and it'll be an in-house job. Would like to purchase this pipe.
All right. Any questions for Brian? Is there a motion?
Motion to get it done.
Second.
Motion to approve from Helm and second from Cummins.
Cummins?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Pashton?
Yes.
Helm?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Brian. And number 16, discussion of possible action concerning advanced ventilator upgrades. Mr. Ratliff?
A couple of weeks ago, spoke to you guys about the FEMA funding opportunity that we had in front of us and still have to this moment. This would be for one of the couple of major expenses that I think that we should really look at. We have a couple of events that I acquired through the federal government. This would allow us to do a feature set upgrade and then add in more features to our way that we can respond to our patients in severe acute respiratory distress. Brian was asking me on Friday, describe this to me in a simple way. When I put patients on ventilators, I look at how long can I take a patient who's in acute respiratory distress, and how long would it take for me to make them better, recognizing that Tipton's 30 to 50 minutes away. The last one I had, it took 25 minutes for me to get them in synchronous with me. And, you know, you think about a patient who's that bad, that's just a miserable feeling, feeling like they're, you know, suffocating to death. The vents that we have that we could do a feature set upgrade, knock on wood, the guys I see that go on them in about 5 minutes later. They're better. We're comparing a $10,000 vent that we carry in our rig right now to a $50,000 vent. If it wasn't for COVID, we wouldn't have the money for it, but I still want to go down this path. With COVID and their use for COVID, I think it's an excellent opportunity to take advantage of it. Questions?
Now, just to make sure this is covered by grants, is this what you're saying?
Yeah, so FEMA funding covers emergency care. There's never going to be 100% guarantee that it's covered. But all of our correspondence in the past has said yes. So there is a risk, no matter how we look at it, but I think it's worth it right there.
You said it's 50,000?
No. The ventilators, each unit are 50,000. The total upgrades to take them to this next option comes out to 15,800 and change.
Then this will be in both ambulances?
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? McNeil with the first to approve, and Cummins with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Bastian,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Cummins.
All right, down to reports. I have nothing this week. Council? Committee? City manager?
Just a reminder, I hadn't heard from everybody about your availability, but it's a reminder that before your next meeting on March 7th, we're asking the mayor and council to get together again at 5. That would be a closed session.
I'll be there.
I can be there.
All right, I will be too, as long as I put it in my calendar. On the 7th at 5?
Right.
I'll just give. Yeah, I'll come with this.
I know who we need to worry about. I was here back.
Yes, that one will be closed. Yep.
I made that.
That one's closed, right, Brian?
Yes.
Yep. All right, and then department heads. See a couple of them. All right, then that moves us down to adjournment. There's a motion to adjourn. Helm with the first.
Second.
And Cummins with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Bastian,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Cummins.
All right, we are adjourned, everyone. Thank you.